Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the heart and soul of photography. I'm Ariel, Faith, your host. Welcome back. We're going to talk to Laura again, and we're going to talk a little bit about some interesting things, how she sees things and how she is inspired by different things. So are you ready, Laura? Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. So how do you use photography to bring attention to the beauty in everyday life?
It sounds so cliche to say it, but it's definitely through the light. I feel like I'm always looking for pockets of light or creating dramatic light, because I think that's what the difference is between, just pulling out my cell phone and taking a quick snapshot. Some people have wonderful cell phones. I have an iPhone 7. I'm on the 15 now. For a perspective of how ghetto my phone, I don't have portrait mode. So the difference between, just pulling out like my really ghetto phone or like actually like setting up a scene or deliberately coming back to a scene and documenting it. For me, it's looking how the light highlights that, because I feel like the contrast between light and shadow is so storytelling. I mean, if you think of movies, light and darkness, good and evil, light and shadow, that's the tension that grabs our attention. So tension that grabs the attention. But that's really what it is for me. So even if there's like just an ordinary scene that I want to document, I'm going to be like, hey, let's just drag the table over to the window here. I want to document it in pretty light because that's going to highlight that. And that's what's going to create, we talked a little bit in another episode about how I document emotion of my kids a little differently, just because with the neurodiversity, they have 0 and they have 100. And when they are at either 0 or 100, my attention is elsewhere. So kind of documenting those in-between emotions that don't necessarily look like emotion, but they can be emotive if put in the right light. So my son sitting looking out the window, it's just my son sitting looking out the window. But if I do that in a way that like puts him small in the frame and the frame is dark and the light's coming in from the window and spotlighting him on the bed, like I'm creating that like light against the darkness, that mood. I'm creating that emotion without him needing to visually show that we're going through a really hard time. So yeah, as cliche as it sounds, for me, it is all about studying those pockets of light.
Yeah. I'm thinking of your image, and I'll make it the cover of this one, but where your son is looking into the washing machine, which is
Teddy.
Yeah, it's adorable to me, but it's also really good use of light. I don't know whether you had an off-camera flash inside the washing machine.
There's no way to get. I've tried it without. There's washing machines or dryers don't have strong enough.
Yeah. But that's just such a neat image. And there's so much emotion in that image because he's like looking at it and he looks excited.
Well, he is. He's so excited to see. I didn't tell him his Teddy was in there. I was like, come see what's in the dryer.
Light is just awesome. I mean, it really is a very good example of what you're talking about. Using the dark frame.
I mean, in that particular instance, I think I was just hiding how ghetto my laundry room was. Let's not look at the rest of my laundry room. I don't have one of those cute Pinterest ones, but that is exactly the kind of like situation that I would do on purpose, even if the rest of the room was cute, to kind of highlight, that moment and bring the viewer's eye to it.
So how do you, at this point in your photography career, how do you continue to grow your own vision and inspiration? And what do you look for to get more inspiration? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Like, I think I reuse a lot of shots. Like, I'm trying to think, and I'm pretty sure I have a shot similar to that for each of my children with each of their teddies. Okay. Not that I shot them back to back, but again, just working on a project or needing to come up with a photo. I'm like, well, we've done this before. Let's do it again. Different kid, different teddy. Hey, look, it's a new image. Yeah. So, I mean, there is the repetition in that, But then it's also, and it is getting harder as my boys get older. They're not into, as we said in another episode, they're not into sports. I don't have the sports photography. They're on their iPads a lot. But it's kind of just looking at examples of documenting, where they're at. So lately, some images that I've taken of them is they love watching movies. It's like a whole thing. They decimate my house with popcorn. I don't know how it's humanly possible to get that much popcorn. It's on the other side of the house on the floor. I don't even know. So I went to the dollar store and I got some cute little popcorn cups, and I just put them all on the big chair, and I just pulled the chair into the middle of the room because the light didn't reach in the corner it was shoved in. And I went outside and I used my flash because the TV, again, the light is not strong enough to get 3 in a row focus. I want to shoot at 1.4. I want to shoot at 4 or 5 point whatever. And I documented them like all looking up at the TV eating popcorn. So again, scripted, but loosely, because they're going to eat at the rate they're going to eat at, and they're going to watch the show, and I'm just going to take the images. Or one day I came out and they had all kinds. We have this, like, we call it Narnia. It's this closet in our washroom. I don't know why 3 human beings can fit in there. It's like, it's like 4 feet off the ground. There's a little rope ladder going into it. I think it's supposed to be for towels, but you need to physically climb in there to reach the towel. So it's just like a hangout. They were all in there on their iPads. And I was like, hold up. I grabbed a blanket and threw it over them because they were wearing like ugly mishmash clothes. And I just wanted this to be about the moment. So I'm like, here's a blanket. I'm just going to reach in and set my flash in there. And I documented them all, I think they were on an iPad, all cuddled up in the closet. So I'm looking for like either things that we do regularly, or sometimes I just stumble on a moment. And then if I have time, I'll capture it. If not, I'll be like, we're doing this again tomorrow and you all get Skittles. And I'll come back and I'll just document like what I see my kids doing. So it's a lot of sedentary activity. But there's a lot of opportunities for those pockets of light. Like something that's coming to mind right now that the weather's warmer is we all go out on the back deck and we cook hot dogs around the fire pretty regularly. So I'm like, how can I document that in a way that has like that family vibe? So I have a couple ideas. I could do it at night and I could have the house lights on, which would be a flash because again, house lights are too dim, coming out and lighting it. I could do it at golden hour. I probably couldn't do it. It depends when sunset is. Wait for a sunny day and go out. So I'm like, I want to get that scene. I want to make sure that we have that memory documented, but I'm going to think on ways that I can bring light to it. That's not just, hey, everyone say cheese. Okay, we're on the deck.
Gotcha. Yeah. Neat. And then obviously the more you practice using light and manipulating light with camera, do you ever use any continuous lighting or no?
Generally not, because it's not strong enough. Because with all the kids, I'm usually wanting to shoot at like f5. And the ISO, I got a Lemon. My camera is supposed to be really good at ISO. My friend has the same camera and hers is amazing. But for some reason, my camera won't go above 800 without getting grainy. So I tend to bring in like my off-camera flash quite a bit.
Which camera do you have?
Oh, I have the Sony A7 III.
Okay.
There's no reason that it should be stuck there. And I mean, with the new AI Lightroom noise reduction, it's not a deal breaker. I could always just run that on my ghetto computer. Takes like 30.
I'm not a big fan of noise. And I find that I tend to get more noise than I want, even though I don't know what the noise looked like 10 years ago, but to me, it's still too much noise, even at even at 800, let alone 1,000 and up. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, so I tend to use my flash a lot. I mean, I've been using it enough now that I'm very quick. Like, I can just run and get it and, like, use it. I don't need to set it up. But, like, obviously, when I was learning, I would put it in the washing machine and shoot with no kid in the room until I got my settings right. And then be like, hey, come look what's in the dryer. Whereas now I can do it more on the fly. Yeah,
it's definitely a skill I have not developed. I find it frustrating, but that's because I don't know it. Right?
Yeah.
If I knew it, then it wouldn't be frustrating.
The learning curve for it is about the same as learning to shoot in manual. That's about the learning curve So it's a little bit of work.
Yeah, I love continuous light because I can see it.
Right. Yeah.
And with a flash, I don't know what it's going to do until I take the picture, and then I've got to look and to me, that just seems tedious. So that's why I haven't done it yet. But I see great shots with it, and I do have one that I could play with. I just hardly ever do. I just use natural light 90% of the time. But then I look at images like yours and I'm like, oh, they're so cool. And then it's the light that I'm not creating with my natural light.
And I mean, I live on the West Coast, so it rains here like 8 months out of the year. So even if we have light, it's not great light.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And my kids get home and we have tutoring and homework, and like suddenly it's dark out, but I still want to take shots. So yeah, it lets me play to my schedule a little bit more with flexibility.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a good fill light when you don't have the right light too. And that I haven't mastered. So it's one of those things that, it's on my to-do list.
Next time you're feeling uninspired, you can learn a new skill.
Yeah, exactly. Which is always a good thing, right? So I have a question for you. Can you share a project or a body of work that holds a specific significance for you personally? And then tell us why.
I think there's a couple of them. I was doing this. I knew that our third child was going to be our last baby. So I was really intentional with how I documented it. In fact, I could keep bringing this back to courses, but it's because it's so much of what I do. I have a course. It's not available right now. It will be available in September. It's been off the market for a number of years, but it's documenting baby's first year. And I really kind of created a course around the intentionality behind the shots that I needed to have. Like, what did I need to have to remember, my last baby's first year? So I think whenever I do a project kind of like that, or when I'm doing, I hate saying 365 because I do them so poorly. But when I'm deliberately trying to come up with a certain amount of images throughout the year, like 100 photos by the end of the year to, represent our journey, I'm always thinking I'm always thinking when I'm 80. That's like my thing. When I'm 80 years old and I'm bored, because I hear that's a thing that happens. I'm looking forward to it a little bit. And all I have is these albums or these videos that my husband and I have created. What do I want to remember from those years? And what's going to make the difference between like one year flowing into the next? You know what I mean? Like when they're little, they change so much. But like as they're older, like what kind of milestones and stuff am I going to want to remember? And that's why, like, if we go camping, I bring my camera. We only go camping. We have, at this stage of life, we have multiple bedwetters. We only go camping one night. So we need to come home and wash everything. And when I say we, I mean my husband. I stay for dinner. I drive home. I have a good night's sleep. I come back and get everyone in the morning. I do not camp. I don't. So, but like, those are things that I want to like document those trips, or like simple things. Like, do you remember when they all used to fit on that chair and watch the movie? And like I was saying in another episode, my kids' sensory issues, they don't want to bump up against each other. So they won't all sit in a row on the bench anymore. But remember when they were small enough to all fit on the bench and not bump into each other? So I'm always thinking, like, for my personal work, for my bodies of work, what do I want to remember from 2024? What do I want to remember from 2020? I did a series around COVID when we were in severe lockdown with no bubble. My husband and I had the alpha strand, and we were very, very sick, like severely sick. And we were locked down for 7 weeks because they didn't know about long COVID. They just said, when your symptoms are gone, you can come out. Well, the symptoms never went away. So during those 7 weeks, like, what did we do? Like, we baked cinnamon buns every Saturday because we couldn't go grocery shopping. And flour and water and yeast were readily easy to come by. So like that was something, we don't do that anymore, but that was something that I'm like, I want to remember this. The boys all like playing, trains on the floor because we couldn't go outside. So we lived in a very small complex. We didn't have a yard that we could just kind of go into. So like whenever I'm thinking of seasons of life, whether it's like this year or, this event or whatever, those are kind of like the memories that I'm creating, my bodies of work per se, that will matter when I'm 80. Like that's what I want to look back on and say, remember when.
Oh, neat. I like how your personal work is, it also doesn't just capture the Kodak moments. You know what I mean? It's the real moments in these experiences. but the ones that are treasured, but they're still real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's nice. Can you share a personal goal or professional goal that you have with your photography in the future? Is there anything that you want to learn that you haven't, or anything that you want to teach that you haven't, or whatever that is?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think for my personal goal, I just want to make sure that as my boys get older, I don't just let it fall by the wayside. Like even when they're 14, 15 or whatever, I'm like, oh, well, they're not young and cute anymore. I look at the 14 and 15-year-olds at the school that I help out at. I'm like, you guys are babies. You guys are babies. So like, I know that I'm going to look back and want those missing years. I want to make sure that I don't just trail off. And even if it's just 50 or 60 photos in the whole year, you know what I mean? I want to make sure that I still have that album. I'm still booking our family shoots, maybe not every year, maybe every other year as they get older, to put in those albums. Like I want to make sure that I, until my kids are 18, I want to make sure that I am capturing those years because I know that they are fleeting. So for me, that's personally. Professionally, I would love to have my own academy one day, not necessarily by myself, in partnership with other people, but I would love to like actually grow that community and see what that looks like. I've been a part of many of them, but I think there's that part of me that loves to create and loves to build and loves to have goals and visions that I would love to see that come to fruition.
Neat. Do you have a specific, like in your thought process, is there a specific target that you lean towards, or is it just kind of open at the moment in your mind?
Like in terms of like what it would look like kind of thing?
Or in terms of who you would be trying to help? Like who would be your audience?
Well, I know it's an oversaturated market, but I think for me, it is the mom photographers, but I also have a real heart for the moms that are struggling, that people are like, oh, remember these years because like you'll miss them. I don't miss the toddler years in the demographic of our house. Also, like it sounds so like severe, but there was so much PTSD, literally, and so much trauma from the combination of COVID and undiagnosed kids with severe needs. And like, I feel like this is the first year that I have felt even a glimmer of myself again. And there's so many people that are still in that, and they're in the unknown and they're losing themselves while they're trying to find answers. But like photography is an outlet and it's something that we're all using. Like, so for me, like those are my people. Like those are the community that I would want to build is, the neurospicy community. Not that like it's anything against muggles. I'm married to one kind of. I for sure birthed one. Like I definitely appreciate the like well-balanced, like emotionally somewhat stable approach that they bring to life. But I definitely have a heart for the moms. And I don't want to say like that's my vision forever, because I feel like even your vision for community grows and changes as I grow, right?
Yes, it does.
Like it's easy for me to be recently coming out of that season to be like, I want to turn around and minister to people that are in that season. But like, I could see myself being 60 and being like, where are all my like 65-year-old grandmas at? Who like don't have two kids at home? What are we going to photograph to like fill our souls? How are those flower beds coming? You know what I mean? Like I could see that community changing as my life situations change.
Yeah, definitely. But there's a real thing. And I think even the availability of just a good phone camera, which now especially if you know some of the techniques to use those cameras even more so, there is just so much gets missed when you raise children. I have 4 and my oldest is 35. My youngest is 18. So we didn't have the older kids were not nearly as photographed as the younger kids. Right. So there is a pocket that is now available to the young moms that really can be a help to that whole process of not just the moment, but also when you look back and they're all grown. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Which you're not there yet, but there's a point when they're all grown or they're off on their own or whatever. and you do look back,
Well, I mean, my husband does video, so he compiles all of our cell phone clips into a family video every year.
Cool.
Which feels like, for me to look back at my photographs, it's still so fresh, like the hard seasons we've come through. So like I see the moment, but I also know the meltdown that got to that moment. I'm like, I remember what that photo was supposed to look like, and I remember all the reasons it doesn't. But I know, like, with time, I'm going to be like, oh, look at their cute little Easter egg decorations. Like, I know with time that I'm going to appreciate that. But with the videos, I feel a little bit more removed because it's kind of like my husband's domain. And I know that I would always go back, and I still do. I watch our family video compilations from the previous years, and I'm like, remember those moments. They're not all hard. Like, they're not all, depressing or difficult or not what you envisioned. Like, there is and I mean, I'm freshly in that season still. So I'm still like, oh, that's actually the beginning of a sensory meltdown right before he cut that clip. So like, there is still like those trigger moments, but like being able to look back and to see that joy and to remember that. And I need that for when, and it's not just raising kids with, neurodiversities. There could be death or tragedy or a loss, or you know what? Some people just find motherhood so much harder than they thought it was going to be.
And they're trying to balance a full-time job and be a mom. I mean, just whatever it might be. Yeah.
It's not, people always tell us it's going to be hard and we're going to be tired, but I'm like, there's so much you didn't warn me about. Like, it is so much more than just being tired all the time. Like the anxiety, will you be okay on your own? Are you going to be a decent human being? Like, don't get anyone pregnant. Like, we're not there yet. And I'm
how old are they?
My oldest is 8, and I'm already like, there's so many levels to it that we carry. And I'm like, there's gotta be the way to look back and to see that joy. And if we don't document it, it's all going to be a blur. And I'm going to be like, oh, I'm sure there was happy moments. But like, would I ever remember that my kid's gross motor skills caused him to stumble and dump an entire bucket of blackberries on his head when he was 2? I mean, it was a happy memory because he didn't seem to mind. But like, I would have just like completely forgotten that. I would have been like, do you remember how hard it was to get them all there? And they had a diaper blowout and da-da-da. I'm like, oh, look at that kid. Like, oh, there goes all the berries. Like those little moments that we have that I would forget without that. So like, I want to make sure that all through their childhood, even into their teenhood, that even if it's not as many, like I'm still documenting it.
That's a good goal. I like that goal.
Yeah.
So I have one more question, but I'm going to ask it in 2 because I think your perspective is important and I think it's worth sharing. So my question is basically, what advice would you give new to photography? What advice would you give them? But I want you to speak from a different point, if you would, for me. I want you to talk to the photographer who is neurodiverse. Mm-hmm. And then the photographer who is, what's the technical term?
It's definitely not muggles. That's a Harry Potter term. Someone asked me, they're like, is that the official term? I'm like, oh gosh, no, that's a Harry Potter reference. Do not use that in the classroom.
I know some of these words have changed even in the few years. So
no, it's neurodiverse and neurotypical are the official term. Muggles are just the non-magic people in Harry Potter. So
talk to us both because you have both listening. So
I mean, I think that if you're just starting out, my advice would be the same regardless, is I would choose either a person whose body of work you really admire or a technique that you want to learn. Choose an identifiable goal. I want to edit similar to so-and-so. I want to learn how to take that shot. And ask questions and study your work and think critically. Pull it up side by side. Why does theirs look different than mine? Was it at a different time of day? Are their kids wearing, really cute clothing and my kid is in a Star Wars shirt? Like things that like you might overlook, right? Or if there's courses out there, like I took so many courses when I started, like there's so many mini courses out there for like $20. Like learn how
really
to I'm trying to think of ones that just launched in the academy we're teaching. so I'm not just promoting myself. But, like my colleague Abby Coop, like she teaches one on layered. That's all about like creative techniques. Like you want to like learn how to do I want to learn how to do double exposures. I can't do it in my current camera. I can do it in my backup body, or I could do it through Photoshop. Like just pick something. It's so easy to just be like, I don't know how to do anything. Pick one thing and make it a project. Make it something that you focus on, because it takes away from the overwhelm and gives you one identifiable goal. And if you get frustrated with that goal, put it down and choose a different one. Like, this isn't like school where you have to finish the class, you have to finish the course, whatever. It was the price of 3 Starbucks. Like, dump it in the drain and do something different. Like, don't dump it in the drain. Save it on a hard drive so that you don't email me asking me where your course is that you lost from a year ago. Save it on a hard drive.
And what's nice about that, from my perspective, is when you might have taken a class a year ago, and when you have that class and you look at it again a year later or whatever, you're at a different place. So even your editing understanding and your knowledge and your lighting knowledge is different. So you're going to get more or different things out of that class, the same class.
I took a class on wrapped newborn photography like 9 years ago. And I keep telling myself every time I go to a client shoot, I gotta watch those videos again. Because I'm rusty. And they're on my hard drive. I just need to go back and look. Like, it's always like did I end up being a newborn photographer? No, I didn't. But like, it's a skill set that I do know a little bit of. And so it's not like it wasn't a waste of money. It was an education experience to know that that's not for me. So like,
have the battle
skills from it, right? So like, just choose a goal. Like, and if you're tight on budget, go on YouTube. Like, there's YouTube shooting in golden hour. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like a course
absolutely.
Because here it is. It's all in one place, beginning to end. I'm done. But like, if you don't want to do that, there's so many free resources, but just choose something and try to better yourself in that area. Don't worry that you don't know lighting and you don't know how to edit and you don't know whatever. Like, just choose something, get confident in that, and then choose something else. You don't need to like bring it all up together.
Yeah. And sometimes if you allow yourself to have a goal for 6 months or a year or whatever, this next 6 months, I'm going to work on this.
Exactly.
And then after that, you can work on the next. If you look at the whole mountain and try to climb it at once, you'll get overwhelmed. But
yeah.
So I like your advice is good. Thank you.
Yeah. Regardless. And depending on like how you choose to operate or how you're genetically wired to operate, like for me, I need a course. Give me the course. I have consumed the course. I get a gold star check mark. Yay. Moving on. If you're like, that feels really limiting, and you're more like my husband, it's like, I just want to learn. Great. Go on YouTube. the learning is endless. You don't get a gold star check mark because you never know when you're done. But if that's how you like to do things, go explore. So like, you can still do the same thing, but with different approaches.
Exactly. And you can, you can do it both ways too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or like, come learn from me. Tell me your ADHD and I will customize for you. And I will check in every day. Are you on page 18 yet? It was on our goal to be on page 18. I'm a very over-invested teacher.
Squirrel.
Who needs personal goals and me to help you meet them? Okay, over here in the DM.
Sounds like you're an awesome teacher. I wonder if there's a class on off-camera flash. I wonder if you are the one that everybody tells me I need to take when I talk about off-camera flash.
I don't know. Right now, it's currently just called Off-Camera Flash 101. It's not very elaborately named. It might be.
But that might be it.
But it is a popular one. I have a lot of people coming to me and telling me that they were told to take it.
Man, I do have a flash, but...
You need a trigger, and don't go shopping without me. I will help you find the one that matters.
But it's funny is I don't... all my kids are grown, so all the cool cute little kid shots don't really happen. So I used off-camera flash for a little while when I first got one, and it did it in nature. It's to freeze the bugs and the macro shots and
macro. It's great for macro. Yeah. I didn't have kids when I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did still life. I did, I set up the violin and did and I sold that stuff for stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I do the cats a lot. The cats get the flash in their face quite a bit.
Yeah, well, you can shoot at a much higher shutter speed for some of that, and obviously different apertures. But a lot of times I fail in focus because my shutter speed is not as good as my hands are. You know what I mean? I think I can hold it, but
there's a lot of forgiveness with flash there because it freezes the vision. Yeah.
Which is kind of important sometimes when the cat's moving on you.
Right? Although ours are not they stay pretty still.
We have a bunch of kittens right now, so.
Oh, only one.
They are kitty AHD.
Right? Yeah, no, I have one of those. That was the white one that was in the background when we first started chatting. The other two are older and slower.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for joining us and for sharing with us your experience and your perspective and some of your challenges, which are huge. And the fact that you continue to help others is really, really awesome. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for asking.
All right. And we will not see you on the next episode, but we will see you online. And
sounds great.
So before you go, share with us a little bit more about how people can learn more about you and what you do.
For sure. Yeah. So I have a whole bunch of courses. Some are workshops, which are fully immersive, you and me for a couple of weeks going deep diving. Some are just little quick, minis, download and go. You can read them, on the bus on your way to work. So it's kind of a variety, covering a variety of topics. Obviously, off-camera flash is a big one, taught through a couple workshops. Mastering Lightroom, organizing all your hard drives and externals and stuff, as well as editing, that's a big one. And then there's smaller ones like mastering greens, documenting baby's first year, all of those kind of bite-sized ones. So there's a whole bunch of them, and you guys can find them over at The Framed Focus, which is a photographer educational community and website. And for the link to that, you guys can check out online here.
Awesome. Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, The Creative Warriors, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.